Hi, this is Oscar here. I'm going to talk today about the classes. First, before I start, I have to talk about object-oriented programming. What's object-oriented programming and what really does for us? Actually, probably after, I believe so, C or C++, for sure C++, they started object-oriented programming. It means that you don't have to write one type of the code all over the time. Let me give you an example. For example, if you want to use a calculator, this calculator maybe you need it for different location on your program to use it. You don't have to write the code over and over. You write one procedure or one object of calculator and you use it again. Copy it, use it differently. Let me give you another example. Imagine that the company that makes car, and that company that makes car, all of the car almost they have same thing on it. So only thing that probably change on the car is the color of the car. We are assuming only, for example, one type of the car, one brand, one model that they make it. On that model number, they may change the color interior or outside the color or different trim on the car. So they are not going to redesign. That is, they make it as a class, that one, and they reprint it of that class. So in object-oriented programming, here, for example, I have here the class we create as a students on if you register for a school. Okay, each students have name, email, phone number, ID, and etc. They have it, and those are status of that students. But again, that students has some behavior. They may register, maybe they add, maybe drop, maybe they transfer to other school. So there are the behavior of those students. Those are classes. We do not have to write every time that you want to write a program. Same thing for each student. This student, student one, has the same thing. The only thing it changed on that one is the name is going to change, email, phone number, but the structure of one student is the same structure that all of the students they have it. All the students almost they register, add, drop, or transfer to other school. So, or the change, the grade is different. So this is, we call it, this is a class. And after that, we blueprint of that one an object. We can have as many students on one school that they, is possible. And each student, they have the same characteristic of each other. And they have the same behavior, all of them they do. So that's a class and that's the object of that one. Let's we go to pie chart. I open up pie chart and I give you example of the class in Python, how we create it. On the Python, when we want to create a class, we just use the class name and then a name for it and double colon for it. So the word of the class, we use it and we give it name. So in this case, I say the students. We have to make sure that, we follow one regulation here. I have it and that double colon and I go next one. So again, we have to make sure that we have a space, indented at least 2 space. What I'm going to do, let me show you what we are going to do that. For example, here, before I started, let me give you another example. So we have to have a method we call definition and define it, they call initialize it a class. Here it is. That is for function define and underscore in and again underscore and then we open bracket and then after that we have it. So that's the first one is self. Actually this self can be any variable, anything can be, but if I put it just ABC doesn't make any difference. I can, for example, a student has a first name, I put it, and then we have last name for a student and last name, and we imagine I give them an ID too, okay, for that one. So we are going to say that self we want to call each one first name, and again we have first name, second name, and ID. Let me show you how does it work. For ID again, we have it here. Okay, we define here the function. Right now, I want to create object of this function. So what I'm going to do it, I'm going to have it, we are going to have it student, the student's class on that one. And then I will give first name, last name for here, and each one to give this one an ID for it. And if not, we assume this one is going to be that. So that is the student. Right now, if I want to get every individual of this one, the behavior of that one, so I print each individual. Let me go back and explain certain thing here, and we could call the students class, and if here it is going to be. And what is that class? That class has behavior, and a student may have first name, last name, gender, ID, and so on. Actually, this type of the information that we store in Python variable, they call it attribute. So we have attribute here, right on. So also the behavior student. So here we construct object, the students, the first student first. I can call the student first here. And then we want to get accessing the attribute of that, what I, say, right now I'm printing on a screen. I say print, and then I have this student, the object is the student one, I call it, and I want the attribute of that one is the first name. To access the attribute of each individual, again same thing, I can say I can create one more object here, and I call this one the second object I can create here, and call it student 2, and give the different variable or attribute to that one. I can say Lucy here, and then this now I call the second object, and I run the second object, comes the second one. Again, I be able to access, or we are able to access we are going to create two methods on the students class, and I'm calling both I call them as a drop and add thing. So let me show you how we are going to do that again. And then I'm going to create the same thing as a dropping. I'm going to we add here, we are going to have to create for adding attribute and for dropping attribute. So I call this attribute. Then we want to know that how many classes a student have or doesn't have it. So what I'm going to again create one of this attribute or variable or be. So I call it, so in this case I will call it probably total classes. And let me assume that we are going to, of course this should be a list, but for the time being what I'm going to say that let all the list of the classes they have, at this case I will call it math, and the math classes, we have different type of the math classes, but let me call this one as a math 101, or anything the school does it have it, or the same thing I call for the next one is going to be for computer classes. So what I try to do it, I just want to say this is student when it's add classes, drop classes, how many classes they have it. So if they add classes, which classes they are going to add it, and when they drop it, which classes they are going to drop it, and how many classes they have it. So in this case, I'm going to have for add classes, that is going to, for your students going to add class, I copy, and then let me assume that this class, if they add it, So total class, how many class they have. So what I'm going to say that I have one more, and I can say that, okay, this class, if they are going to add the classes, each one, they have 3 units, and we add that one to total classes. Total classes that we had it here, or we have it here. So whatever they had it before, we are going to, so it tells us how many classes that a student has at the end of time. So probably we are going to print that one on the screen, and so we print out on the screen how many total classes they have it, and we are going to have this attribute here. So, but we have to call this method that we have. So how we are able to get access the object here that we created, or how we are going to call the method that we have it. So the method that we have it, this is the, we are adding method, and it's going to be a student 1. We assume it for a student 1. I want here, I'm going to call this method. So I have a student 1, and then I have this method. I'm going to have this method and print out how many is going to be there. I call method. So I call this method and say print the student 1, the first name, and where I come here, I call the adding, how many classes they are adding. So that's how we are going to call that. But I can put a if condition here. If this class is greater than 12, so what is tell me if it's less than 12. Let me go for the dropping class and do the same thing for dropping class, and I show you how we are able to add in case if they don't have any classes, or if they have more classes, what will happen. So what we are going to do that, so when the student drop the class, so it should be 3 class out of total class that he has. If he has 6, 7 classes, because we put the total class 0, so we are going to have total class minus how many class that he has. So it's the same thing, but instead that one, so because we are going to minus that one, there should be reversed, otherwise going to be minus the class. So how many class it has, it's going to be 3 class directly from there. And then when I'm going to say that, then I'm going to tell them, okay, print out how many classes that the student has. But again, it's going to be same thing, total classes there this student is going to have. But in this case, I'm going to let that, okay, if this student, this how many units is had, I'm to say that if this student has less than total class that they have, less than 0, I have to let them know, okay, you didn't have any classes in this case. If this student has less than or equal 0 classes, what it has to say, I have to print out for him. I get the printout statement here, and I'm going to say that, okay, you don't have class here. So because this student has only 3 classes and drop one of the classes, so it tells that, okay, it tells before it goes here, you know, you don't have how many units you have, and then we have a if condition tells. So that is how we call the method in the object that we created, or actually the object was created, the function was created, or method was created on the class, and we are able to provoke or recall them through that one. Student 2 can be same thing. If I call this student 2, is going to be same thing. Right now, imagine right now I have here, it said first name, it's the last name of the student called, and send, you know, the ID of the student. I had the ID here, so student ID for the, so I give me all the student, first student, second student, and third student here to give me the ID of the student. So one more time, let me go through that one. the class that we created uh, become much more easier to use it. So I can use this class I created to add the student a name that I don't have to create again. The blueprint is going to be here. I don't have to do it anymore. The only thing that I'm going to create an object, and this object is going to inherit everything for the class. And the only thing that we are going to change here, as we did here, what we are going to change, the status of that one. The behavior is going to be same thing, but the status of each student, the name or attribute of that one is changing. Hopefully you enjoy it, and have a wonderful time.